Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This channel is dedicated to finding out whether I know it all or not. Please make sure you subscribe and like, and also definitely make sure you ask questions in the comments because that's what I'm answering. You can ask questions in the comments or at my email address, which is either in the description or at the end of the video. This is going to be a little bit different. My wife told me this one is a musical themed one. So she sent me an email and it said, do not play until you're on air. So I'm going to record this, and I guess the idea is I have to identify what piece of music this is. I'm going to add one layer of difficulty to it because if I happen to recognize it, which I hope I do, hopefully I can do it rather quickly. So I'm going to time myself. I will probably replace the audio here because I'm just playing off my laptop. I'll probably replace it with higher quality audio, but anyway. So expect the audio hopefully to be a little bit better. Okay, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oops. Gotta actually hit play here and unmute it. Okay, now 1, 2, 3. I recognize this. Just 1 second. Oh yeah. Okay. So I know exactly what this is. I just had to wait for the bell dinging to know that it wasn't that thing. Okay. So this is, oh gosh, what is it? The Witch's Sabbath. So it's the last movement of Hector Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, or the Fantastic Symphony in English. And it is the Dies Irae section, which comes, I don't know, not quite halfway, probably a third of the way through that movement. And it's actually, I'll try to play a few other clips. Obviously, I don't want to use too much copyrighted material because, whatever. But anyway, the Dies Irae is the day of wrath. Dies Irae, Dies Illa, right? So it's Latin. It's part of the Latin Requiem Mass. Dies Irae is the day of wrath. Dies Illa is the day of judgment. And then it goes on and on and on. There's lots of text. But it is a kind of in the Requiem Masses. Oh gosh, there's lots of those. I guess famous ones would be like Mozart, where it's like Dies Irae, Dies Illa. Right, so you got that one, and there's also another super famous one is the Verdi Requiem, which is like boom, boom, Dies Irae, Dies Irae. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I'll sing for you too. Why not? But anyway, so as you can tell from the kind of music, it's a pretty violent thing. It is the nastiest part of the Requiem Mass. Actually, Brahms, who did the Ein Deutsches Requiem, or the German Requiem, which is kind of a more Protestant version. This is all very Catholic, the Dies Irae. He did Then All Flesh is Grass, right? Denn alles Fleisch ist Gras. So even he has one where it's like things are going to fall apart. It seems like it's a necessity for a Requiem Mass for you to have this section where you're talking about death and the fear of death and the fear of judgment and the fear of God in death. I don't believe there is a Requiem Mass that ends with that. That would be pretty brutal. Usually it ends with something that's like the Agnus Dei, which is the Lamb of God, or with something that's like another Requiem, like a kind of a recap of that, or Libera Mei, Lux Aeterna. Yeah, there's a good part. Anyway, eternal light, right? Shine upon them. So Requiem Masses generally do not end with this. This usually comes towards the beginning or maybe the middle of the Requiem Mass. And it's kind of the thing where it's supposed to put the fear of God literally into you. So as a person, you will live a good life so that you don't do that. Okay, so what does this have to do? Okay, first of all, this particular tune is from way, way, way back, Gregorian chant. So it's like Dies Irae, Dies Illa. Dies Irae, Dies Illa, solvet seclum in favilla. right? So that's the kind of tune, and that's what you heard in this Berlioz symphony. But it's first presented in that very serious way. And then it kind of comes in just after that with like a kind of a ribald version of it, if you want to put it that way. It's like ding, 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 ding. Right, so it's done in a different orchestration, like twice as fast, and there's a lot of little frilly stuff that's going on around that. And all of that is the idea that this is the witches' Sabbath, so they're making fun of this, right? This is the fantastic symphony. It's kind of all goofy and crazy. So yeah, so anyway, that's what's going on, is that this symphony in particular is that movement of the symphony is like the witches making fun of this very, very serious part of the Requiem Mass, using the old tune from the Gregorian chant to make fun of, I guess. That would be the way to put it. Another interesting aspect of this is that same tune, and I think actually kind of the orchestration from Symphonie Fantastique, is also, if you may recognize this from the opening credits of The Shining. And oh gosh, I'm terrible with names. It was two people. It's Wendy Carlos, I believe, was one of them, and Rachel somebody. I'll put it across the bottom. Anyway, but they composed this music, and they used synthesizers and created this crazy, creepy, like backgroundy thing. But the primary thematic element through there is the Dies Irae. In my sound design class, which I teach, I actually talk about that particular opening sequence because I think it's fascinating. You've got this like kind of like helicopter shot of a little VW bug driving up through the mountains of Colorado with supposedly Jack Nicholson in it. If you turn the music off, or if you put on some sort of like, hit the highway kind of thing, right? You could imagine this being a relatively nice movie. Life is a highway. I will ride it all night long. But that particular thing right there just, it's like, okay, we know that this is going to be a bad movie, right? If you didn't know that before, spoiler alert, The Shining doesn't end well. It's not a good movie. It's a Stephen King novel, so what are you going to say? Interestingly enough, Stephen King absolutely hates the Stanley Kubrick movie because it didn't really follow his book, but I think both of them are really lovely pieces of art. They just kind of stand on their own. But anyway, so that opening sequence with the kind of synthesized Dies Irae that's going on gives away the entire plot. It's like, okay, the stuff is going to happen here. Things are going to go down. Things are going to go south. So that's an interesting aspect of this. So there's a lot of history to this particular tune. Berlioz was making fun of this. It's an interesting question whether people would recognize this piece of music now or not. Certainly in the 19th century, it would have been more expected for people to know the Dies Irae theme, tune, whatever you want to call it, melody. And so therefore, he could utilize that in a way that's kind of like, haha, look, I'm making fun of this. So it's very, sacrilegious to some extent, but of course that was basically the point that Berlioz was trying to make here, right? It was the witches' Sabbath. It's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be kind of anti-religious, and so that's what he was sort of doing with it. But anyway, it's just fascinating that it keeps getting used in modern times. People throw it out there sometimes, and I think that you'll find it to be quite interesting if you listen for that thematic element, that dun 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 dun. That theme, if you listen for it, you will hear it in places, and so therefore you'll be able to go, aha, this is all about the day of wrath. This is a bad thing. Those Catholics, they knew how to do some music and make it sound pretty scary and nasty even back in the day. well before classical music time. This would have been in the Middle Ages in the 8th, ninth century. I'll have to check on exactly when this particular tune came up, and I'll put it across the bottom if I can find that. But it's certainly over 1,000 years old. So, it's been around for a while. Okay, this is a little addendum to the video. I got so excited when I was answering the question that I completely forgot to actually, go and check and make sure that I was correct. So first of all, I checked and yep, it is indeed the Dies Irae section of the Symphonie Fantastique by Hector Berlioz. It does make use of the Dies Irae. It's actually a 13th century Latin piece. So that original Gregorian chant was 13th century. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that I put in here that I actually had gone ahead and checked, and it wasn't really until I got to editing the whole thing that I was like, oh crap, I forgot to put that in. So so anyway, I just wanted to go ahead and put that in here and make sure that we knew. And anyway, yes, it was correct. Yes, it was the Dies Irae. The idea is that it is a burlesque parody of the Dies Irae because, of course, it is the Dance of Witches, and that's kind of his shtick, what he was going with when he was writing this symphony. So, certainly a secular re-envisioning of the Dies Irae over the more traditional, religious connotations of it all. So Berlioz was clearly playing with that and, being somewhat sacrilegious, I guess, when you think about it. But anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure I threw this in here to make sure that I was on the up and up, having checked and not just assumed that everything was correct. So there you go. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the answer to that question. That was a different one. So by all means, send me some other music and we can talk about that some more. That was a lot of fun. And I happen to particularly like that piece of music because I think it's really interesting how it's been used historically and how much sort of history is associated with that particular melody. Anyway, make sure that you like and subscribe, and definitely make sure you ask questions in the comments or at drknowitallknows@gmail.com. I am super happy to answer them, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.